It is May 4th. Happy Star Wars Day, by the way. And we just had another snow shower. We had a massive one last night, covered all the trees, the mountain was looking great. But today I've got something really cool for you indoors. I'm going to show you how to take epic photos, epic portraits indoors. So let's get inside, out of the cold, out of the wet, and get into it. Alright, in this video I'm going to show you some cool ideas that you can do at home. You can take all the photography ideas here at home. No need to go outside, no need to go anywhere, no need to get anything special. All the ideas are pretty simple. I'm pretty sure everyone that watches this will be able to recreate it if they want to. And these ideas are open to adaptation, so I'm laying out how I thought these up and how I wanted to do them, but you are free to adapt them and make them your own. And with that being said, let's not waste any more time. We can do the first one right here. Right in this YouTube setup. I'm going to take this chair and move it very slightly over here, and then we're good to go. For this first idea, you literally need your camera, your arm, a chair, and an idea. The idea for this video actually came about from my Instagram stories. I started spinning around in this chair while talking to the camera, giving people updates on Instagram. And then I thought about it, I was like, I wonder what would happen if I took a photo here, because the camera is going to be still, it's going to be in my hand. There's going to be nothing moving technically if I keep my arms steady, but everything else will be moving. I wonder if we can make a cool photo out of it. So let me show you how to do it. The setup of the camera for this photo is actually pretty simple. We're going to set up the timer to give a 2-second or 5-second delay. We're going to set it to a really wide angle. I've got mine set to 16mm at aperture 2.8. ISO is going to balance out as far as we need it after we set the shutter speed, and our shutter speed is going to be super low. You got to trust me on this, it works. So we're looking at 1/20th of a second, maybe 1/30th, somewhere between 1/10th and 1/30th. Figure that out for yourselves on your own camera, but for mine it's 1/20th of a second to get the desired effect. And once we've dialed in our camera settings, this is when the fun really begins, because this is probably the most fun self-portrait I've ever tried myself. I was trying it right before I recorded this video to make sure it worked, and it's fun. So I'm going to use my feet to spin me around anti-clockwise as fast as I can, whilst being able to hold this camera as still and as close as I focused before, because I can't see my focus. I'm using a Sony, they ain't no flip screen. Blind photography. And ideally I'll be able to get this background in the photo, because that's the better looking in this room. So I'll hopefully time it well to start spinning around as that timer counts down. Let's give it a shot. And this is basically the video equivalent of the photo. So here we go. Oh, holy shit, that makes you so dizzy. Like after a couple of them, man, it's just game over. Don't say I didn't warn you. Oh, that was fun. That's awesome. Be sure to stick around to see how that turned out. We're going to edit all the photos after we get through the ideas, so stick around for that. All right, on to the next one. And we're not going to do it in here. We're going to take it to the living room. So I'll see you there. Welcome to the living room. This is our new spot for photography. If you've seen any of my other videos, you might recognize this fireplace. It is the centerpiece of the room, and I like to use it for some of my photos sometimes. Anyway, photo number 2 is going to be another portrait shooting through an object to give it that bokeh feel. So I'm going to be using a really shallow depth of field like before, and I'm going to be placing an object closer to the lens than I am to make that blurry bokeh effect with me appearing clearly between that bokeh. Let's do it. Alright, for this photo, you're going to need your tripod, you're going to need the object to shoot through. In my case, it's going to be a lemon tree, without any lemons yet, sadly. And that's pretty much it. We're going to do the timed photo again like we did in the one before, and just strike out that position. If you've got an external monitor, or if you have a flip screen, I wish I had a flip screen, then you can monitor yourself through that. Otherwise, you're going to have to just keep checking composition and fix focus to something like the chair without you on it, or something really close by to that plane or that field that you would be in. So yeah, let's crack on and see what we can come up with. This actually turned out to be a really cool portrait. I'm super delighted with it. I even got my guitar in as a prop. Bit of a challenge getting the lemon tree to sit exactly how I wanted it, and then frame up the camera, and then time it, and then make sure the focus was the same. So lots of variables here to think about, and I ended up using my hand. I sat down, planned out where I was going to sit, used my hand as somewhere to focus on while I reached the focus, switched to the manual so it didn't move again, and then took a couple of shots, and it returned better results that way. So little tip, if you are trying this, try and get your focus first and then switch to manual so it doesn't change. Next up, we got to go to the kitchen for what is quite possibly the most relevant to me portrait in this entire video. Shall we? Welcome to my kitchen. This is going to be the area, the studio, the setting of this next photo. And as you can see, the background is pretty bright, and I'm going to be shooting in this direction, quite wide and close to me and the next subject we use. So I think I need to change my clothes into something a little darker. That's better. Okay, let's get into it, get the props together and see what photo we're trying to create here. I've got my props, I've got my whiskey, my glass, my ice, and my little prop board that I'm going to use as foreground element for this shot. I'm going to shoot in portrait mode again, and what I'm looking for is a super clean photo of the glass with the whiskey and the ice in it, and then me slightly blurred out in the background. You'll see what I mean when we get to editing it, but this is our setup. I originally thought about using my little mini tripod that I use for my external monitor, but I think because this is pretty low, I can actually balance the camera portrait side and just hit the lens up here, and that'll give me the right angle with getting as close at 16mm as I want to this glass. Oh man, these turned out so good. I'm so excited to get editing all of these, man. I got a little bit adventurous. I got the shots that I wanted, and then I started playing about with like dropping ice and stuff in, and oh man. So a little problem when I was trying to balance the camera, my strap loops were getting in the way. I balanced it out with a couple of coasters and a napkin, and it held up absolutely fine through all the shots, didn't have to touch it at all. And also there's a little bit of a distraction behind my head here, the clock, so I took that off the wall for all the shots. I could have removed it in Photoshop, but then I'd probably had to go around my hair or whatever, so it's just easier to take it off the wall. And before we move on to our final photo idea, it would be a shame to let this whiskey go to waste. So let's press pause for a second and just enjoy. For this last one, we are back in the studio, the YouTube room, familiar settings, and we are going to create our own bokeh. So like before, we did the plant in front of the scene to set that sort of shallow depth of field shooting through something. This time we're going to create it ourselves with our hands, our arms. I think I'll switch to my 85mm because I can get the 1.8 super shallow depth of field so that bokeh is creamy. Apart from that, I'm not really changing anything. I'm still using the timer. I'm going to use it either on a tripod or I'm going to set it on the arm of the couch here. And I'm going to shoot this way. I'll be there, set up my focus, and with the timer that'll allow me to get into place, set up my pose and see how it goes. Set up my pose and see how it goes. Alright, so I've been trying it out with the 85, and realistically I don't have arms that are long enough to get that focal range bokeh. Ideal for something that you can set real close to it or midway between you and the subject at 85mm. So I've switched back to 35, and this way I can get close here and I can bokeh up my face, just 2 fingers, hands, whatever, you know, much more room to play with, and my hand can literally touch the lens from here, so a much better situation. All right, we have smashed our way through 4 ideas for photography that you can do in your house. I've had a lot of fun. I had a little whiskey too, which makes it even more fun. But now we're going to go through it and edit real quick and see what we came out with. Alright, so we've done the hard part and also the super fun part. I really enjoyed myself taking all those photos, and hopefully it's fun for you guys to watch and maybe inspire you to try them out. But now, like I said before, we're going to go through editing them. First up is the photo where I was spinning in a chair. I got the desired effect that I wanted, and the first one that I took that I liked was at 1/30th of a second. And this is the process of editing this. I'm going in, I'm using one of my drone presets just to balance out that. I like to be quite punchy, but because it's quite a wide angle shot, I don't want to make it too contrasty or too dark. And once I've done that, I'm playing around with the HSL tabs just to get the colors exactly the way that I want them and add finishing touches to it with a little vignette. I did try and crop it in a little bit to see if that would affect how it looked, and I felt like it took away from the overall effect, so that full size, wide scale photo is my preference for this one. And here's how that one turned out at 1/30th of a second. And I also edited another one of these shots because I was messing about between 1/30th and 1/20th. And the one that I liked the best, or the one that turned out the best, is this one here. And you can see from that the streaks, or the blur, the motion blur going around me, is much more prominent than the first one. So 1/30th of a second was enough to get some slight blur in the background, but knocking it down to 1/20th of a second, which I had to knock off a few more shots than I would have liked to because I was getting super dizzy, turned out a better result in terms of that motion blur and that vortex look behind me. So this is an idea that I would have liked to play about with more, but by the time I got 5 or 6 shots with it, I was dizzy enough to almost be thrown up, so I had to call it quits there. Super fun idea though. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that an idea that came to me while I was doing my Instagram stories actually worked out to make a pretty cool photo. On to photo number 2. If you remember, that was when we got the plant to use as bokeh in front of the subject to create something to shoot through. And as before with my editing, I'm using one of my presets as a starting point to base the rest of my edits off of. Again, I'm looking for that contrasty, punchy look that I quite like, kind of have it as my own style, so I quite like to do that as much as possible. Now, while that square on portrait is pretty cool, I did think that I could use the space a little bit better. So I reset the chair. I kept the tripod exactly where it was, I kept the plant where it was, but I repositioned myself because I wasn't happy with the result that I got. And I repositioned myself, grabbed the props, I grabbed my guitar, and a bit more depth to the photo, as you can see here, with the neck of the guitar coming towards the lens as well, so sort of framing my head and shoulders with the guitar neck and the plant. And I think that, even though not the photo that I had initially planned, I think that is the photo that I'm most happy with. And now photo number 3. I've been thinking about this photo idea for quite a while, so it was awesome to be able to put it into practice. It could be a product shot, it could be a portrait, but for this one, we're calling it a portrait. Any excuse to drink whiskey, right? And again, using presets as a starting point to make my adjustments from. In my mind, this finished photo had to look quite moody, lots of blacks, lots of punch, lots of clarity in the ice and the whiskey bottle, which helps to bring through the character. And as you can see there, I'm using a gradient filter on the bottom just to take the focus off of the wood because it's quite close to the camera, it's bright, it's going to distract from the subject, which is the glass, which is slightly above it. So adding that gradient, adding the graduated filter, takes the attention off it and forces the eye up into the glass where all the action is happening. And this photo idea presented a number of opportunities. The first one is we had the bottle hovering over the glass with the ice already in it. And in the second one, we took it a step further in the natural progression of things where we pour the whiskey into the glass with ice. And the third variation is the obvious follow on from pouring the whiskey in. It looks like I'm just about to pick the glass up and enjoy that sweet whiskey. And because I was having such a good time pouring whiskey and playing about with it, I decided that I was going to try and get an action shot, which is a hard one to do when you don't have a photographer ready to pull the trigger on rapid fire. And when I dropped the ice in, I was trying to time it. I had a 5-second timer. I'm trying to time it so that my ice is just reaching the glass brim or touching the whiskey right on that 5 seconds. And here's what that turned out to be. Overall, super pleased with these. I got to enjoy the whiskey afterwards. Awesome. All right, last up is our DIY bokeh. So here, using my fingers as the bokeh. Again, I went into my presets to start off with and made some slight adjustments, as you can see here, to end up with the finished photo, which is quite a moody orange and teal sort of vibe. It's about time I got on board with producing orange and teal photos on YouTube. So here I am. Late to the party, but at the party, no less. And after I'd finished the bokeh photo with my fingers, I grabbed some fairy lights that I had sitting around and I used them. I had to play around with them a few times, but ended up with a couple of good results. One of them is my favorite in terms of the bokeh, but I've got serious concentration face on, as you can see here. I'm concentrating way too hard on keeping the bokeh where I wanted it to be that I forgot entirely what to do with my face. So there we go, 4 sweet photo ideas that you can do at home with a time camera and a tripod to take sweet portraits of yourself. As always, if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe. Subscribing is totally free and it helps the channel out a shit ton, so please do go ahead and do that. And if you can think of any other photo ideas that might involve me having a wee shot of whiskey afterwards, please do write that in the comments below and I'll probably make a video out of it. And if you do try any of these ideas or you put your own spin on it, I would love to see them. My Instagram is linked in the description below, but here is my Instagram tag for your convenience. And if you want me to make any more videos like this one, please do let me know in the comments. Hit me up on Instagram. I would love to get some of your feedback and then I can base videos off of that. And I will see you in the next one.